I'm going to be brief. I don't split my time with my sister here because she was standing there for a long time. I just wanted to hear what she had to say because, as the sister said, it's generational, you know, the enemy wants each generation to grow up alone and reinvent the wheel. So I don't know what this is the one to say.
Good evening.
Mike.
No problem. I'm in junior right now, and it's time to go right now. And I was writing, I became interested in ammonia of Wichita, and in January when I went to the other program our education. So, I'm doing my research and I find it so difficult to find out the names of the activists, everyone, and I'm so curious why is the government doing so much to try to silence them? Why are they so much?
Well, I thought it was an instinct when I asked that you take my time to because that's what I wanted to deal with. The reason why the political prisoners are in prison is because of the concrete actions of individuals and organizations and groups that marginalize and demonize the armed front of the Black Liberation Movement. At a certain point in time, it became necessary to support the status quo, to support the consolidation of the right. We've had stakeholders in the Black community, Black leaders. I think many of you know their names. We have Black organizations, Messianic organizations, faith-based organizations that have consistently conspired with the power structure and the status quo to demonize any type of resistance, violent resistance to the violence of the state. And so this has had an effect on us, and that's why you don't know anything about political prisoners. That's why you don't know anything about the political repression that has occurred. That's why stories, or what I call stealth history, the revisionist history of what happened, is made into books and sold, and individuals, travel the speaking circuit to do this. So, if you want to know about the political prisons and political repression in this society and in the college or setting, you have to go look for it. You have to go to unorthodox sources. I mean, you have a brother here, Herb Boyd, who's an excellent writer who's been around since White Thread. Herb is an excellent source of information. Literally, I mean, he's an author of at least how many books? 20-something books, 24 books, on understanding these very things that we're talking about. So I just want to end by saying, what I want to say is that Gwendolyn Brooks, who was my favorite poet, was always my favorite poetess of all time, the late Gwendolyn Brooks, she wrote a poem called The Second Sermon on the Wall. And in that poem, she said that we should have our bloomings in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. Because in the whirlwind, we are citizens. In the wild weed, we are citizens. So it's the struggle, and not what's going to come of it. Whether you see the victory of it in your life is not important. It's the struggle that's important. It's the fact that you stood up at this time, this place, this here, and you said no. And that you struggled to the best of your ability to bring something about a positive change. So it's about struggle. Yeah, we should have a plan. Yeah, we need a plan. Yeah, we hope we win. Yeah, we want victory. But it's the struggle for truth that matters. So that you face the law of the last day of time. So what did you do when you was on earth? What did you do with the soul and the intellect and the intelligence I gave you? What did you do with it? You can say, oh, Allah, I tried to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Allah, I tried to stand up for those who couldn't defend themselves. And I did it the best way I can. The Allah's apostle, the Prophet Muhammad, said clearly, how do we fight and struggle against tyranny? And he said there's 4 ways that you can do it. He said the least of which is to hate it in your heart. The second of which is to speak out against it. And the third of which is to act against it. But the most important thing to do is to make sure that whatever you do, you try to err on the side of justice, on the side of righteousness. To be on the right side of history is worth more than you could imagine. So I just want to say, we have our blooming in the noise and the whiff of the world.
Can I answer this question, because I think it's a very important question, and really it should have been the frame of this conversation. Political repression is not particular to black radicals in the 1960s. Political repression has been a constant in American history from the time of its inception to the present. If we think about American society and our democracies, they haven't been handed down to us from on high. At every turn, ordinary Americans from the time of the Revolution to the present have fought to extend the definition of democracy. So let me give you a sense, at least for the history of the 20th century, of what that has meant. In the late 19th century, there were huge movements built by white immigrants in this country for the 8-hour day. Those white workers, immigrants, were incarcerated for their activism. The 8-hour day, which we don't have much of, is with us today because people fought against the 1%. Many of them were incarcerated. Some of them fought and won, and we got the 8-hour day. We're free today because of the slave rebellions and because of John Brown. John Brown is a white radical of that epoch. He was killed for his defense of black slaves, bloodily, in the borders of Kansas and Nebraska. Why do they repress these people? Because they are a challenge to authority, because they resist the status quo, because they expose the contradictions and inequalities of our society. Eugene Debs was incarcerated for 1 year. This is a white socialist labor activist because he stood up against war during World War I. In the aftermath of World War I, you had these raids. Why? Because World War I brought with it the largest anti-war movement that had ever emerged before a movement happened. And because of the excesses of the FBI, the ACLU emerges in the 20th century to defend something called free speech, which up until then American society had not acknowledged. And behind Eugene Debs, we have someone by the name of Alice Paul, a feminist who during the war chained herself to the gates of the White House, fighting for what? The right of women to vote. Alice Paul, a white woman incarcerated, went out on a hunger strike in prison to essentially dramatize the condition of women, white women in this society. She was incarcerated. W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, all of these people spoke truth to power, and for speaking truth to power in the land of the free, they were silenced and incarcerated. This is part of a long history of silencing people who dare to speak truth to power and who dare to challenge the United States to make good on its promise of democracy. It is not a new thing. It is here, has been here since early man, really. And the latest rendition of this is the attack on Muslims in this country. Now, the Muslims are our new enemy. But really, part of what the government has tried to do from generation to generation is to incarcerate a few radicals to essentially instill fear in the hearts of Americans. This is what's going to happen happen to you if you dare to fight. You are going to be in prison. But we have to say that we are the few, that we are the many, and they are the few. And had it not been for the struggles of slaves, had it not been for the struggles of workers, had it not been for the struggles of black people in this country, America would be still living in the Stone Ages. And we are here in this institution, at this forum, to continue to discuss the ways in which our society continues to uphold savage inequalities. Right here in the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx. And I go to the Bronx and to the streets of the Bronx and to the schools of the Bronx, and it is tragic the ways in which our society has thrown away a whole generation of people.
Yes.
But you know what? You move from the South Bronx and you go to the Appalachian Mountains, and the poor white people are experiencing the same hell.
Right.
And part of what the Black Panther Party attempted to do, with all of its mistakes, was to say that we all have a common interest, that we are the many and we have nothing, but they are the few, and together we can transform society. But they also understood that central to the crisis of inequality in the United States is the problem of racism. And that African Americans and other people of color who've been terrorized by this system have the right to protect themselves, defend themselves, and ensure that a new generation of oppressed people, of people of color, get to breathe another hour. So with that,